We were only supposed to fake a relationship to dodge our family's constant marriage pressure. I would provide the looks, she would provide the money. So how the hell did she end up falling for me and turning into a full-blown Yandere? Now she wanted to lock me up and keep me all to herself. I had no way out. So I did the only thing I could think of. I faked my death and escaped that insanely possessive, ice-cold CEO. 3 years later, I was sitting beside a beautiful girl, laughing because I was convinced my ex could never find me. Then, in the very next second, my buddy's face went deathly pale. He suddenly mumbled something about needing the bathroom, then practically fled for his life. A delicate hand landed on my shoulder. And then, a voice so cold it sent a chill straight down my spine sounded behind me. My wife, the woman who had vanished from my life for 3 years, she calmly warned me, "Run again, I dare you." 2.5 minutes earlier, my friend had been acting like the ultimate bro. He told me I was one lucky bastard to have a friend like him. No long speech is needed. He swore he was going to find me 2 gorgeous girls that night. My buddy threw an arm around my shoulders, then started shouting with the confidence of a man already 3 drinks past sober. I pushed him away. Then I joked that 2 girls were nowhere near enough. I needed at least 3. He laughed and said, "3 it is." He was grinning so hard his eyes nearly disappeared. He said he owed everything he had built over the past few years to me. Without me, he claimed he'd still be out there struggling in the rain, barely making ends meet. I waved him off, telling him there was no need to make such a big deal out of it, but he was too fired up to stop. A few minutes later, 3 beautiful girls were already sitting around me. They were cheerful, friendly, and extremely enthusiastic. Every few seconds, one of them tried to hook an arm around mine. I could only awkwardly shuffle backward, trying not to make things even more obvious. I raised my glass. Then I told my friend to keep investing and making money alongside me. We could split the profits 50-50. After all, what was this if not me putting him to work? I laughed and asked whether I was really treating my best friend like cheap labor. But working for a brother, I argued, wasn't exactly the same as being an employee. My buddy took another huge gulp of his drink. He was still grinning from ear to ear. Besides, he reminded me, all the original capital had come from me. He was more than happy to work under my command. Then he burped. He leaned closer to me and jokingly brought up the past. Back then, if he hadn't known that I was secretly staying at his place, he would have thought I'd completely lost my mind. Especially if my ice-cold CEO wife, Bai Ningbing, had found out about it. He asked what I thought she would have done to me. I actually stopped and thought about it. My drunk brain was already starting to lose its grip on reality. But my mouth, unfortunately, was still working perfectly. I told him Bai Ningbing was ridiculously possessive. Her obsession with me was seriously off the charts. She was basically a real-life yandere straight out of an anime. I figured she'd drag me back home the moment she found me. She probably wouldn't even let me step outside. And the more I talked, the more confident I became. Then I decided to take the joke even further. I told him she'd probably lock me inside the house permanently. I finished that line with a smug laugh. Still proud that I'd somehow managed to disappear from her grasp 3 years ago. But my friend's joking expression slowly disappeared. His face became more and more serious. Then it turned absolutely pale. I watched his expression change right in front of me. I even patted him on the shoulder. I told him to relax and asked why he looked so shocked. Why suddenly so serious? She still hadn't found me after 3 whole years. What could she possibly do now? She'd probably already given up looking for me. But my friend's face didn't relax even a little. Instead, he slowly tilted his chin toward the space behind me. His eyes were filled with pure terror. He swallowed hard and finally spoke. His voice was trembling. "Bro, I'm going to the bathroom. Take care of yourself." I laughed and cursed at him for suddenly acting so weird. I asked why hearing her name had scared him that badly. I called him a coward. The moment those words left my mouth, a cold yet unbelievably soft hand gently tapped my shoulder. Then I heard a voice I had burned so deeply into my memory that I recognized it instantly, even after all these years. It whispered directly beside my ear. "Who said I couldn't find you? You see, I found you." It was Binding Bing. My entire body froze on the spot. For the first time in 3 years, it felt like time itself had stopped. I stiffly tried to turn around and face her. I needed to see the woman I'd spent 3 years desperately running from. But before I could even look, another delicate hand gently held my head in place. Binding Bing's voice carried a faint, terrifyingly playful edge as she continued whispering beside my ear. "Don't move!" My husband, who disappeared for 3 years. Her tone was almost teasing. But there was something behind that sweetness that made my blood run cold. "You said you wanted me to lock you up, didn't you?" My mind went completely blank. Every excuse, every apology, every desperate explanation I'd prepared got stuck somewhere in my throat. I didn't even get the chance to speak. A hand holding a handkerchief suddenly moved toward my face. It covered my mouth. At the same time, her other hand covered my eyes. The entire world instantly disappeared into darkness. "Listen to me. Take a deep breath." Feeling dizzy is normal. Binding Bing's voice descended into my ears like a demon's whisper. Soft enough to sound comforting, yet cruel enough to terrify me. "Get some sleep. We'll be home soon." A heavy wave of drowsiness hit me almost instantly. I fought desperately to stay awake. But my body refused to obey. Deep down, I already knew it. My 3 years of freedom were officially over. My head felt like it was splitting apart. I struggled to force my eyes open. My throat was so dry, it felt like it was on fire. The instant my consciousness returned, I knew something was seriously wrong. There was a tight sensation around both my wrists and ankles. I tried to move. That was when I realized I was lying on an enormous, incredibly soft bed. Above me was a pale purple ceiling, and the air carried a familiar scent that had been burned into my memory. I knew that scent far too well. This was her bedroom. The exact room I'd spent 3 years running away from. My heart sank. At least everything was still intact. But then, click. The door lock turned. A slender figure dressed in a black silk nightgown stepped into the room. She walked in without a sound. Binding Bing's bare feet pressed softly against the carpet as she approached. Step by step. Not a single footstep made a sound. She stopped above me and looked down. Her eyes were cold, yet burning with obsession. She looked like someone admiring a priceless treasure she'd finally recovered. One that had somehow been lost, dragged through the dirt, and finally returned to her. I struggled against the restraints and begged her to listen. I tried desperately to explain, but silk restraints had already secured my wrists. I insisted that everything was just a misunderstanding. She didn't answer. She simply shook her head. Then one icy finger rested gently against my lips. Just like that, every plea for mercy died in my throat. Shh. Her voice was quiet, almost gentle, but underneath it was barely contained rage. An explanation is just another excuse. Then her expression changed. "I don't like the scent on you." My entire body went rigid. Inside my head, every alarm was screaming. I was doomed. She slowly leaned down toward me. Her long white hair spilled downward like a waterfall. Several strands brushed softly across my cheek. The tickling sensation made my entire body tense up. Her lips moved closer to mine. Then, in a voice so calm it was almost emotionless, she whispered that she had spent 3 years, 1,095 days and nights looking for me. "Where exactly did you think you could run?" Every single heartbeat of yours. I remember it perfectly. That sentence sent a chill straight through my skull. This woman, she wasn't someone I could reason with. There was something she hadn't finished 3 years ago. She slowly straightened up, a satisfied smile curling across her lips. Tonight, we'll make up for all of it at once. That night, I finally understood what absolute helplessness felt like. With her completely in control, I was forced to face the 3 years of emotions she'd kept buried. All that anger, longing, and resentment. Then morning finally arrived. The first ray of sunlight slipped through the gap in the curtains and landed across the room. Every muscle in my body was aching. I felt completely wrecked. Meanwhile, Bai Ningbing was already fully dressed. Once again wearing that cold, elegant, untouchable expression, the cold, untouchable image of the ice-cold CEO was back. She stood beside the bed, her voice completely devoid of warmth. Then she looked straight at me and said, "Remember this. From this moment on, you belong to me. And if you try to run again, I'll make good on every threat I've made." With that, she turned around and walked out. A few minutes later, the bedroom door opened again. The woman who entered was the nanny who had watched Bai Ningbing grow up. Ever since she was a child, 3 years earlier, she had also been the one responsible for taking care of me. She was basically the household nanny. She carried in a breakfast tray and placed it silently on the bedside table. She looked exactly the same as I remembered. The nanny set down the meal, then walked out without saying a word. She gently closed the door behind her. I stared around this painfully familiar bedroom, and it felt like I'd fallen into a time vortex. My memories were violently dragged back 5 years. Back then, I had just graduated from college, a freshly minted corporate NPC destined to be worked to the bone. Meanwhile, Bai Ningbing was already the untouchable CEO of a massive corporate empire. She needed a shield to deal with her family's relentless marriage pressure. I needed a job. She needed someone. One simple contract was all it took. Just like that, we became the fake couple everyone in Jiang City envied. At first, we treated each other with polite distance. We lived under the same roof. Yet we were practically parallel lines that would never intersect. Our boundaries were crystal clear. Then everything changed because our mothers somehow became best friends. Those two, my mother and Bai Ningbing's mother, instantly clicked. It was basically a matchmaking alliance. They started showing up at our villa constantly to check on us. Of course, their real mission was painfully obvious. They wanted to turn our fake marriage into the real thing. So, to make our little performance more convincing, Bai Ningbing and I were forced to start sleeping in the same bedroom. When that still wasn't producing enough results, our mothers immediately unlocked the next stage of matchmaking hell. They brought in all kinds of mysterious dishes I couldn't even name, but they all smelled aggressively bitter. They kept appearing on our dinner table one after another. They practically had make babies already, written across their foreheads. Bai Ningbing even hid at the company, hoping to dodge a few of those meals. But our mothers weren't about to let her escape. They simply ordered me to bring her food, and they made me keep a video call running the entire time. It was during those ridiculous, almost comedic days that something between us slowly started to change. Whenever I stayed up late, she'd leave a light on for me. Whenever work left her exhausted, I'd quietly massage her shoulders. Day after day, those tiny moments slowly turned into something neither of us expected. The feelings quietly grew. Then came the incident that changed everything. Day, I went to deliver the soup our mothers had prepared for her. But the moment I reached her side, I spotted a middle-aged man who looked completely unhinged. He was the owner of a company that had gone bankrupt not long before. He suddenly charged straight toward Bai Ningbing as she walked out of the building. My mind went completely blank. My body reacted before my brain did, and I threw myself in front of her. A brutal pain exploded across my back. Warm liquid instantly soaked through my shirt. When I finally woke up in the hospital, I could tell immediately that something in her had changed. She no longer looked at me with cold distance. Now, there was a possessiveness she didn't even bother hiding. That incident changed her completely. Whatever she had felt for me before had evolved into something far more dangerous, an obsession that refused to compromise. At first, she merely demanded that I report whenever I went out with friends. That was only the beginning. Then, she started forbidding me from having anything to do with other women. And eventually, even my male friends were suddenly considered a problem. She even ordered the nanny who had practically raised her to stay close to me under the excuse of taking care of my daily needs. That villa stopped feeling like a temporary home. It slowly transformed into a luxurious private collection room. And apparently, I was the most valuable item in the collection. At first, I was grateful. Then I tolerated it. Eventually, I reached absolute despair. I wanted freedom, but Bai Ningbing's love had become unbearably heavy. It crushed the air out of my lungs. I had to escape. And just when I thought I couldn't take it anymore, an opportunity somehow landed right in my lap. That was the day Chen Zhou, the eldest heir of the Chen family, came looking for me. He just happened to be Bai Ningbing's #1 pursuer. He was also the man who couldn't stand me the most. He stood outside the villa, dressed head to toe in designer clothes, with that arrogant, entitled posture. He claimed he wanted to take me out for some fun. But when I saw that fake smile through the window, I knew exactly what he was planning. I could see right through his act. He wasn't there to hang out with me. He was there to make my life miserable. Luckily, I'd already prepared my own escape plan. It was going to be one hell of a disappearing act. Just as I expected, Chen Zhou took me far out into the middle of the ocean. There wasn't a single island anywhere in sight. Once we were far enough away, he stopped pretending. He ordered 2 bodyguards forward, boxing me in from both sides. Today, I'm going to teach you a lesson. You're not even remotely worthy of Bai Ningbing. One immediately put on my best terrified expression. I stumbled backward, retreating until my back reached the edge of the ship. The instant one of the bodyguards reached out to grab my collar, I deliberately slipped. My body dramatically pitched backward, right under their hungry, stunned stares. I let myself drop straight into the ocean. Splash! The freezing seawater swallowed me whole. Luckily, I was an excellent swimmer. The moment I hit the water, I didn't panic for even a second. I immediately dove deeper and swam away at full speed. Underwater, I held my breath and kept moving. I quickly stripped off my jacket and shoes and left them floating on the surface as a decoy. I moved through the water like a fish. Without making a sound, I swam farther and farther away. I left the cruise ship, its security team, and every sweeping searchlight far behind me. Once I finally reached shore, the first thing I did was secretly contact my parents. The moment the call connected, I broke down crying like a little kid. I needed them to completely cut off all contact with Bai Ningbing. So I fabricated one gigantic lie. I arranged to meet my parents at a rundown motel. Then, right in front of them, I lifted my shirt. I showed them the scar across my back. My parents were horrified when they saw it. I told them it happened when I went out with friends to discuss business. I claimed Bai Ningbing had hurt me because she didn't want me going out. I painted her as a woman who looked elegant and ice-cold in public, but became dangerously obsessive in private. I told them that Bai Ningbing acted completely normal around everyone else. But the moment we were alone, she became someone else entirely. I warned them not to let her fool them. Looking at my scars and hearing me describe what I'd supposedly suffered, they finally believed me. They promised to keep my secret. Then they told me to run as far away as I possibly could. And just like that, I took the money Bai Ningbing had given me under our original marriage agreement and disappeared. I started a completely new life in another province. I helped my best friend Ki Kyung build his business from the ground up. And honestly, helping him was basically helping myself make money too. Life became peaceful, comfortable, and ridiculously free. At least it stayed that way for 3 years. Ki Kyung eventually made it big. To thank me for everything, he took me out drinking and celebrating in a private room. That was exactly where she found me. A month later, I had completely stopped fighting back. There was no way I was getting out anyway. So I figured I might as well play games. Food came straight to me. I didn't have to work, and honestly, I could survive the shut-in lifestyle. Then another night arrived. As usual, I sat in my room waiting for her to come home. After more than half a month of this, I'd already gotten used to doing absolutely nothing. Gaming in my bedroom every day wasn't exactly the worst punishment in the world. Then the door opened. I heard footsteps, but strangely, they didn't carry the usual oppressive chill. Instead, there was something almost carefree about them, and the restraints I'd been expecting still hadn't shown up. When I looked over, Bai Ningbing seemed to be in an unusually good mood. She was wearing a simple white nightdress, and there was even the faintest smile playing at the corner of her lips. That alone told me something was seriously different tonight. And strangely enough, she didn't get straight to the point. Instead, she sat down beside the bed. Her slender fingers slowly traced across my face. My husband has been behaving lately. There was a faint edge of amusement in her voice. I couldn't be bothered to answer. She didn't seem bothered by my silence either. She leaned closer and asked why I wasn't saying anything. Was I still angry with her? Her icy fingertips slowly moved down my body, tracing lightly across my throat. Then they stopped against my chest. It was the kind of teasing game that made me feel like a mouse trapped under a cat's paw. I clenched my fists tightly. All the frustration I'd bottled up for more than a month was being ignited piece by piece. My numb heart felt like someone had thrown it into a furnace. In an instant, a wildfire erupted inside me. Every ounce of strength I'd been holding back suddenly exploded. With one violent movement, R.I.P., I finally tore myself free. The move caught Bai Ningbing completely off guard. For once, that flawless face showed genuine shock. And that split second of stunned hesitation was all the opening I needed. With my newly freed left hand, I grabbed both of her wrists. Then I twisted around. "What are you doing?" I stopped her before she could even cry out. For the first time, I saw unmistakable panic in her eyes. She told me I wasn't allowed to do this. I fired back. "For the past month, did you ever ask me whether I was okay with any of this?" The tables had officially turned. Every ounce of humiliation and frustration I'd endured for more than a month was now fueling me. A month later, the relationship between us had entered a strange new phase. Neither of us knew how to describe it anymore. She stopped locking me down completely. but the entire villa was still filled with an uncomfortable silence. Then, one afternoon, she returned from the company. There was a complicated look in her eyes as she stared at me. I was sitting on the sofa, quietly looking out the window. Then, suddenly, she slammed a document onto the coffee table in front of me. The sharp slap echoed through the room. I frowned. Then, I glanced at her. I picked up the paper. One black line of text hit me like a thunderbolt. It exploded inside my head. 3 weeks pregnant. I stared at the paper. For several seconds, I was completely frozen. I had absolutely no idea what to say. 1,000 emotions collided inside me like someone had dumped an entire paint palette into my mind. Joy, fear, disbelief, pressure. Everything hit at once. I was going to be a father. That thin sheet of paper felt heavier than a mountain. It pressed down hard on my chest. After that day, I was finally allowed to move freely around the villa. I still needed her with me whenever I went outside. But compared with before, that was already a massive victory. And I realized something. With this child coming, I couldn't keep resisting her forever. Instead of passively enduring everything, I decided to take the initiative. I couldn't escape, so I'd change her. For the child who was about to enter our lives, and for my own future, I made my decision. From that day forward, I started trying to act like an actual husband. The kitchen became my new battlefield. I went online and studied countless recipes. Then I started cooking something different for her every day. One evening, I brought a steaming bowl of calming soup over to her. Binding Bing was sitting on the sofa, working through a stack of documents. She didn't even look up. "I'm not hungry," she said in that same cold voice, exactly as distant as always. I didn't argue. I simply placed the bowl beside her. Then I turned around and walked away. Much later, when I passed through the living room again, the soup bowl was completely empty. She still wore that same icy expression. After dinner, the villa became so quiet that I could hear nothing but our breathing. She sat across from me, slowly eating the snacks I'd made. For once, the atmosphere between us was almost peaceful. I looked at her and finally asked the question that had been haunting me for so long. The question I'd been bottling up for more than a month after I disappeared without a trace for 3 whole years. How did you manage to find me? Her movements suddenly slowed. She calmly placed her chopsticks down. Then she lifted her head and looked directly at me under the dim yellow light. A strangely obsessive expression slowly spread across her beautiful face. It was almost frighteningly devoted. Just looking at her made the hair on my neck stand up. She finally spoke in a quiet voice. Her words sounded like they were coming from somewhere far away. "During those 3 years, I visited your parents 28 times. After you disappeared for 6 months, there were 16 times when..." She stared straight at me, as if she were reminiscing about something precious. "I could still smell your scent on your parents." I froze. "Are you secretly a bloodhound? How is your nose that insanely accurate?" She suddenly stood up. Then she slowly walked toward me. Her movements were graceful, almost like an elegant cat stalking its prey. She stopped right in front of me, then leaned down. Her long white hair spilled over my shoulder. She moved closer to my neck and slowly inhaled. "Your scent. I could never forget it for the rest of my life." Her voice whispered directly into my ear. "Every cell in your body carries traces of me. No matter how far away you are, even if that scent becomes incredibly faint, I'll still be able to recognize it. She lifted her head. Her icy fingers gently brushed my cheek. Her eyes burned with intense emotion. This is a scent that belongs to me alone. For the first time, I truly understood just how terrifying this woman's love could be. It wasn't normal affection. It was obsessive, possessive, almost frighteningly absolute. But precisely because I finally understood that, when I noticed her unconsciously resting a hand over her lower abdomen, the bitterness inside me slowly began to fade. In its place came a much stronger determination. For our child, and for myself, I had to help her heal. I had to make her feel secure instead of constantly afraid of losing me, and my parents were the first obstacle I needed to clear. So I took the initiative and suggested bringing Bai Ningbing home. She looked genuinely surprised, but that surprise quickly turned into a satisfied smile. Before we left, I hid in the bathroom and made the phone call I'd been too afraid to make. The phone rang for a long time before someone finally answered. Hello? It was my mother's trembling voice. I took a deep breath. Mom? It's me. I'm with Bai Ningbing right now. She's pregnant. I didn't give my mom any chance to start interrogating me. I immediately confessed that I'd been the one who lied to them back then. I was the idiot. Don't make up anything else and blame her. Please don't hold anything against her. We'll be home this afternoon. I hung up. But when I stepped outside, Bai Ningbing was leaning against the door. She had obviously heard every single word. She didn't say anything. She only wore that faint, unreadable smile. And somehow, that smile sent another chill down my back. When the car finally stopped outside my childhood home, my heart shot straight into my throat. The moment the door opened, my father stood there with bloodshot eyes. He didn't say a single word. Instead, he reached behind the door and grabbed the weapon I'd feared since childhood. The family's legendary feather duster. You little bastard, he roared. The feather duster came swinging through the air straight toward me. WHACK. How, Dad? I'm sorry. I really am. I covered my head and sprinted around the cramped living room like my life depended on it. I desperately dodged every swing. My father wasn't holding back even a little. Every hit had me grimacing and sucking air through my teeth. You're still capable of lying to me? You took such a good woman and turned her into some kind of villain. I should have taught you a proper lesson a long time ago. Meanwhile, my mother stood nearby, wiping away tears. My mother kept telling him to stop. But she didn't take a single step forward to save me. Bai Ningbing stood quietly in the entrance hall. She simply watched the whole spectacle unfold. She even thoughtfully closed the front door for my father. That completely eliminated my escape route. This entire comedy of a reunion felt suspiciously like a punishment ceremony designed specifically for me. It only ended when my father finally got tired. He stopped, panting heavily. And that unforgettable lesson in parental love finally came to an end. Then we sat down for dinner. And somehow, the atmosphere became surprisingly warm. My father completely changed his attitude. Suddenly, all of his attention was focused on Bai Ningbing. Ningbing, eat more. This is good for you. Have some more soup. It's good for the baby. Bai Ningbing obediently nodded. She took small bites of food, putting on the perfect daughter-in-law performance. Watching the whole thing, I knew exactly what had happened. From this day forward, my wife was clearly the real boss of this family. With my parents officially conquered, the next boss battle was my in-laws. On the drive over, Bai Ningbing and I had already agreed on our story. The moment we stepped into the Bai family home, my mother-in-law rushed toward me with tears in her eyes. She grabbed my hand and looked me over from head to toe. My father-in-law, meanwhile, remained seated on the sofa. His expression was stern. His eyes were sharp enough to interrogate a suspect. "Uncle, Auntie, I'm sorry for making you worry about me." I lowered my head, doing my best to look genuinely remorseful. Bai Ningbing linked her arm through mine, then calmly explained the completely fabricated story we prepared. 3 years ago, Fang Yuan fell into the sea. A fishing boat rescued him, but he lost his memory. I only found him again recently and helped him recover his memories. Even I thought the excuse sounded ridiculous. Sure enough, my father-in-law wasn't buying it. His eyes narrowed suspiciously behind his glasses. Then what exactly was he doing for those 3 years? My heart tightened, and cold sweat nearly broke out across my back. Before I could invent another lie, my mother-in-law immediately interrupted him through her tears. "Why are you asking so many questions?" She grabbed my hand. Her eyes were filled with sympathy and relief. "You're home. That's all that matters. And you've remembered everything. That's wonderful. Poor child. You must have suffered. After all, Ningbing spent 3 years desperately searching for you. Her longing finally paid off. That's how she managed to find you." I immediately nodded along. Inside, though, I quietly breathed a sigh of relief. The crisis had somehow passed without the entire lie collapsing. Looking at my mother-in-law, completely convinced, and Bai Ningbing being fussed over beside me, I realized for the first time that mothers-in-law could actually be pretty adorable, especially when they were unknowingly helping me survive my own ridiculous scheme. After we returned from my in-laws' home, the atmosphere between Bai Ningbing and me became noticeably softer. She no longer looked at me like I was about to sprint for the nearest exit, and I stopped acting like a hedgehog permanently prepared for battle. For once, I wasn't constantly bracing myself for another confrontation. A long time passed like that. One day, I was busy experimenting with recipes in the kitchen when Bai Ningbing walked in from outside. A faint trace of cool outdoor air still clung to her clothes. "Get ready. I'm taking you somewhere." Her tone was flat. I couldn't detect a single emotion behind it. My heart immediately skipped a beat. I had no idea what she was planning this time. Still, I nodded and agreed. We boarded a private plane. I had no idea where we were headed. She didn't explain, and I didn't ask. Only when the plane finally landed did she reveal our destination. She had brought me here to see what happened to Chen Zhou. "Come on!" She naturally linked her arm through mine. Together, we walked toward a cluster of shabby residential buildings in the distance. The farther we went, the stranger and more complicated the smells in the air became. Finally, she stopped at a corner. She didn't say a word. She simply lifted her chin slightly, silently telling me to look inside. I followed her gaze and looked ahead. I saw a man sitting miserably outside a rundown doorway. And somehow, I immediately realized that this was the man who had caused me so much pain. Chen Zhou. My throat instantly went dry. I couldn't force even a single word out. Bai Ningbing seemed almost pleased by my stunned expression. She clearly wanted me to understand exactly what I was seeing. Then she calmly began explaining her masterpiece. "After you disappeared, I was miserable for a long time. Then I used a few little tricks. I brought his entire family crashing down. I drained their funds, then arranged a few scandals that left their reputation in ruins. Now his family can barely afford to eat." Her tone remained completely calm, like she was casually discussing something as insignificant as the weather. But the content of those words sent a chill through me. I stared at the man outside, someone who looked nothing like the wealthy young heir I remembered. And for a moment, I couldn't process it. I was completely dazed. The smile on Binding Bing's lips deepened. But that smile was ice cold. After that, his whole family moved here. She paused for a moment, seemingly enjoying the completely stunned look on my face. After all, he's the reason I spent 3 years searching for you. Binding Bing turned her head. She stopped looking at the ruined Chenzhou and instead gazed at me with eyes overflowing with affection. Her gaze softened completely. She raised her hand. Her icy fingertips gently brushed across my cheek. It felt like she was soothing a frightened little pet. So, darling, her voice was sweet enough to rot my teeth. But the warning underneath it was unmistakable. From now on, don't ever do anything that makes me this sad again. She let out a soft hum. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. I knew exactly what she was implying. After we returned from the other province, I thought our lives would simply continue in this calm, uneventful rhythm. Then Ki Kyung's phone call shattered that illusion. Bro, you and your sister-in-law finally made up, right? Then you have to come out and celebrate. On the other end of the phone, his voice was just as loud and carefree as ever. I already told the boys all about it. We all knew you'd be fine. I gripped the phone tighter. My palm instantly started sweating. I instinctively glanced toward Bai Ningbing, who was elegantly sitting on the living room sofa. She was calmly flipping through a book as if nothing in the world could disturb her. No way, I whispered. My rejection was immediate and absolute. Those idiots are definitely bringing their girlfriends. I don't want any trouble. What trouble? Why are you refusing to come? Come on, bro! Your wife isn't going to eat you. I could only force out a bitter laugh. Actually, she absolutely might. I was just about to invent an excuse and hang up when a familiar, icy voice suddenly came from directly behind me. You're going! You have to go! Every muscle in my body tensed. I slowly turned around. Bai Ningbing. I had no idea when she'd gotten there, but she was already standing right behind me. Her face showed almost no emotion. My brain practically short-circuited. For a second, I thought I'd imagined her voice. She looked at my stunned expression and calmly added, "Because I'm going too." I froze. She continued, "I want to see which of your so-called good friends had the nerve to hide the truth from me 3 years ago, and even arrange pretty girls for you." She paused. Her voice became even colder. I think they deserve a little disciplinary reminder. My entire back went cold. This wasn't a casual reunion. This was the Queen marching into her territory with a side quest to exterminate the weeds. That night, I walked into the private room with Bai Ningbing's arm linked firmly through mine. The moment the door opened, the room that had been packed with laughter fell completely silent. Ki Kyung and my other 2 buddies, along with their girlfriends, all froze as if someone had slammed the pause button on reality. Every single one of them stood there in stunned silence. Their eyes moved slowly toward my face. And the fully unleashed aura of Bai Ningbing. Her gaze swept back and forth between everyone in the room. One of my friends awkwardly laughed and joked, "Wow, you 2 really know how to make an entrance." One of you ran away, and the other chased after him. Even a TV drama wouldn't dare write this plot. Bai Ningbing's smile never changed. From that moment on, the entire gathering became Bai Ningbing's personal stage. She moved like an elegant, arrogant Persian cat, staying delicately pressed against my side. One moment, she was adding food to my plate. The next, She was pulling out a tissue. Then she gently wiped the sauce from the corner of my mouth. Every little movement was so ridiculously intimate that even the couples across from us looked overwhelmed. "Hubby, eat more of these shrimp. They're good for you. Have some soup, too. Slow down." Before 9 o'clock, the painfully awkward gathering came to an early and merciful end. On the drive home, I couldn't help complaining from behind the wheel. That party was seriously boring. I'm never going again. Binding Bing sat quietly in the passenger seat. She casually examined her nails. Then asked in an almost indifferent tone, "All of your classmates? Old classmates? Some of them have known you since middle school? Some of them even go all the way back to elementary school. And what about those girls? Those girls? Don't let their current attitude fool you. They weren't nearly this fierce back in middle school." My survival instincts immediately kicked in, so I added, "Anyway, I don't like any of them. They're fine as friends, though." Just like that, 3 years slipped by. The time passed so quickly, it almost felt unreal. My relationship with Binding Bing became incredibly stable through countless clashes, arguments, and compromises. Somehow, we'd built something rock solid. Her possessiveness and controlling tendencies seemed to have genuinely calmed down quite a bit because of me. Of course, I said seemed. As long as some clueless woman didn't get way too close to me, things were usually fine. She rarely lost control anymore. And when she did, her punishment had evolved from locking me in my room to play games, into a completely different kind of discipline. Basically, I'd wake up with an aching back and sore muscles. By now, I'd gotten completely used to it. Honestly, I even enjoyed it a little. And then there was our daughter. Little Xiaobai had already turned 3. She was an energetic little troublemaker, the kind of adorable daughter who stuck to me like glue. I had officially become a full-time stay-at-home dad. Every day I handled childcare, cooking, and basically the entire household. And honestly, life was pretty damn comfortable. The only problem was Binding Bing. She had a habit of getting jealous of her own biological daughter. That left me completely speechless. One evening, I carried Xiaobai in one arm, while using my other hand to bring the freshly cooked dishes to the table. "Dad, did you make my favorite Coca-Cola chicken wings today?" Xiaobai squirmed happily in my arms. Her tiny, sweet voice immediately lit up the room. I smiled and lightly tapped her nose. "Of course. Just wait for Mom to come home, then we'll eat." Xiaobai happily wrapped both arms around my neck. She proudly announced, "I love Daddy's cooking the most." "Thanks, Daddy." Then she leaned toward me. She planted a huge kiss on my cheek. It was wet, warm, and smelled faintly of milk. And of course, that was exactly when Binding Bing walked through the door. She saw everything. I swear, the temperature in the living room dropped several degrees. Binding Bing slowly stopped what she was doing. Then she lifted her head. Her eyes locked directly onto Xiaobai in my arms. Look, I had seen something frighteningly similar when she looked at Chen Zhou. There was that same possessive edge. My heart immediately sank. The next second, Binding Bing charged toward us in several quick steps. She moved like an agitated little cat. She immediately reached out and tried to snatch Xiaobai straight out of my arms. While doing it, she calmly told our daughter, "Xiaobai, climb down from your father's arms. That's my exclusive spot." Xiaobai was startled for a second, but she quickly realized what was going on. She wrapped both arms tightly around my neck and refused to let go. Then she turned toward Binding Bing and flashed an outrageously mischievous grin, looking every bit like the little troublemaker she was. "Mommy is bad! I don't like Mommy! Daddy is mine! Daddy isn't yours!" That sentence basically lit the fuse on a powder keg. Binding Bing immediately scooped Xiaobai out of my arms, pulling her free and holding her securely against herself. Then she looked down at our daughter. Her hand came down in a light swat against Xiaobai's little backside. "You little brat. You still dare to disobey? And you actually dare talk back to me?" Xiaobai instantly switched from fearless troublemaker to full surrender mode. She threw her tiny arms around and yelled, "Daddy, save me! Mommy is hitting me!" I couldn't help laughing as I stepped forward. I took the crying Xiaobai into my arms. I looked at Binding Bing and smiled. "You've worked all day. Teaching kids is a physically demanding job. I've got this. Leave it to me." I gently guided Binding Bing toward the dining table. Then I gave her a reassuring smile. I turned around with Xiaobai in my arms. I pretended to discipline her as seriously as possible, giving her tiny backside a few ridiculously gentle taps. At the same time, I muttered dramatically, "You little troublemaker, look what you did. You made Mommy angry? Now, let me teach you a lesson." Xiaobai quickly realized I wasn't actually hitting her. Her crying immediately became much quieter. She secretly lifted her head. She watched me pretending to hit her as hard as I could. Then decided to play along and pretend it hurt. She even secretly gave me a look. Her eyes practically screamed, "I know exactly what you're doing, Daddy."